And good evening, everybody. This is your boy Cruz, the Beast from the East, and you are tuned in to a special broadcast of Cruz Inc. Radio 102.8 live TV. It is Thursday evening, and we are glad that you're able to tune in with us. Man, it has been a beautiful day in the Cap City. We had a high today about 80 degrees, looking for a low tonight, 77, and tomorrow for your fantastic Friday. It's going to be beautiful. We're looking at, again, 77 degrees is going to be somewhere around our high. And then tomorrow night, it's going to be a nice 69 degrees. So looking for this entire weekend to be one that you can get outdoors, get some fresh air, kind of let your hair down a little bit. And remember, though, if you're going to be out there, you got to continue to have the social distancing. Please wear your mask. Make sure you're doing all the things that the CDC requires for you to do, because we want to be safe, although we want to get out and enjoy ourselves as well. Want to say a couple of housekeeping things here. You have the opportunity to write some comments, but we're asking for you to be very respectful in your comments. Any negative comments or anything that we deem inappropriate, we will not air those comments, and we will not ask Ms. Rodgers to respond to those. So again, if you have some critical questions around the mayoral race and that you would like to ask her, we ask that you put them in the comment sections. And also, we want you to know that we're on live right now on the YouTube channel. That's Cruz Inc. Radio 102.8 TV YouTube channel. And this will be housed out there after this broadcast has ended. I want to give a special thanks to some people that were instrumental in making this all happen. First of all, Miss Shannon, who is on Miss Rodgers' team, and also Miss Moffitt, who is on her team. And most of all, I want to thank Miss Alexsis Rodgers for being here tonight. She is a civic leader. She has advocated for economic security, voting rights, college affordability, quality health care, and she's played some key roles in Medicaid expansion and also increased birth control access. And I know I'm about to hear a lot of noise now. She is a VCU grad, Ram Nation in the house. And not only is she a VCU grad, she is a hoops fan representing the black and gold. Welcome, Miss Rodgers. And for now, and I'll just refer to you as Alexis. Is that okay?
Yeah, I would appreciate that very much. Thank you for having me, Cruz.
Well, we're glad for you to be here. We know that this is a busy time for you, and that for you to take time out of your schedule to be with us. Me and the 6,400 people, the Richmond VA Things to Do page, really appreciate that.
No, thank you. The pleasure is mine.
We're going to be kind of get right in here because I know, again, your schedule is limited, and we want to touch on a lot of key points, especially those points that we know that our citizens want to know. They want to know about you. Unless they've been up on the rock, I don't think they could miss you right now. But, you know, there may be a few that because of the pandemic and they just all the political ads are kind of buried their heads. But tonight we just want to do some insight. And first of all, you have a platform and you've been sending out quite a few mailers. And we want to go to some of those talking points here tonight. First thing we want to talk about, and you see it on the bottom of the screen there, is education. One of the things that is top priority in your color code, I like the color code, by the way, with this, is education. Let's talk about Alexis' plan for education, and then I have a couple of side things I want to throw into the mix of the conversation. What do you see as some of the important factors in terms of the educational system here in the Commonwealth and the Cap City?
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm a product of public education. So when I think about my public school education, I think about the teachers that invested so much in me, right? And to this day, I have high school teachers who have been saying, you know, giving me advice about the campaign trail, giving me advice professionally in my career, teachers have always had my back. And so when I'm thinking about how we take RPS to the next level, how we make sure that we are, having the best education system for our young people, I'm thinking about making sure that we have the best educators in our classroom every single day, providing the support and the leadership that we need for young people to be successful. And to me, that means making sure that we know not only why people come to the classroom, but why people might leave. And unfortunately, in the Richmond public school system, I don't think we've done a good enough job keeping track of retention data and figuring out why, particularly teachers of color, might be leaving the school system. So part of my plan is making sure that we are laser focused on monitoring that data and figuring out how we can keep our quality educators in the classroom, and not losing them to either other public education systems or other career fields altogether. I know, one of the key things is making sure that we are able to pay our teachers fairly, but I think there are also issues within our school system that can be addressed related to making sure that teachers have a voice on the job, that they have the support they need to do their jobs well. Something that I know that a lot of teachers are wrestling with is having to feel like they are counselor, mom, teacher, and doing all of these jobs while trying to maintain order in the classroom. So part of my plan too is making sure that we're having more nurses and counselors and folks, adults in the building to help make sure that we are able to support our young people's learning, and not having so much burden on the teacher having to manage all of those responsibilities. And I really look forward to, kind of leading that effort to not only fully fund the public school system, but to get teachers and educators and our facility staff the support they need to do their jobs well and make sure young people are learning and graduating with the skills that they need to be successful in our community.
I'm gonna tell people right now, I promise you, we all did not rehearse this, and I'm gonna show you how skilled she is, because she touched on several points that we're gonna just emphasize here. Being again a former teacher from Blackwell Elementary, and then at John Thompson, and then finally at Meadowbrook High School, I understand the dilemma. And I went back to the corporate world simply because of what you talked about, and what I like to talk about is retention. And those same things that you talked about are some of the reasons that myself and many colleagues left public school systems. Not that we didn't love it, not that we didn't care for the kids, but we were not able to adequately take care of our own family. You're trying to teach kids and you're worried about whether or not your Dominion Power bill is going to be cut off, or you got some other things going on. So it makes it difficult. So Alexsis, up under your administration, how do we, first of all, recruit and retain the best and the brightest teachers for our kids?
Yeah, so to me, we've got to make sure, of course, that we are fully funding RPS, and that means making sure that we're paying teachers competitive wages. But I also, as a leader in the workers' rights movement, I believe that teachers and RPS staff should have access to a collective bargaining unit, the right to organize, to make sure that they are getting support and recognition to have a voice on the job. I think we've seen across the country that when teachers are able to unionize, they have better outcomes for their students, smaller class sizes. We know that everyone is more successful in those kinds of agreements. And I would be an advocate and a major cheerleader in that effort. Something else that we have to do is make sure that teachers are not retaliated against for making their concerns known. I think you look no further than Black at RPS, and you can, on Instagram and some of these social media channels, you can hear the experiences of not only Black teachers and administrators, but also students of color who have experienced discrimination or other kind of retaliation as a part of their time in RPS. As mayor, I would be making sure that we're working with the superintendent and school board to address some of these issues, to figure out how we can make a school system and a culture of accountability for when there are issues like this that come up. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if you keep dealing with the same kind of hassles on the job, and you heard from your friend that does the same job in a different school system that they don't have to deal with that, you might make a different choice. And I know a lot of our school teachers, just like you just mentioned, Cruz, are, Richmond City residents themselves. So what we do to support RPS teachers and the sanitation workers and the transportation workers with RPS, ultimately benefits our community overall, because so many of those workers are also our neighbors and community members.
Absolutely. I know, and I don't want to date myself here. Back in the day, teachers used to be a part of the neighborhood. You knew them. Some of them went to your church, and we kind of lost that connection. And I think it's evident in how we become disconnected, especially in the school system. And it's showing up in another area, and that is in the graduation rate. In 2018, the graduation rate here in the city of Richmond was about 75%. So coming up in 2019, it has dropped about 5%. Now we're looking at 70% graduation rate, which now contributes to that from the school to the prison pipeline. So how do we change that narrative? First of all, getting our graduation rate back up, and then decreasing that pipeline to prison from the school system.
Well, then we got to throw in the other factor of the reality of right now, right? Where so many of our young people are struggling with remote learning. Our families are having a hard time supporting their young people during virtual learning. We know it's the safest to keep that situation right now while we're still monitoring the public health emergency. But I'm obviously very concerned about how this will continue to impact young people's educational outcomes in the city. So something that I've been really concerned about is making sure that we have culturally competent educators in our communities who are able to help bridge that gap for families and help think about what issues, and a lot of our teachers do this, but making sure that more of our teachers are thinking about what issues students might be showing up to their classroom with, even virtually. The fact that maybe they've been sleeping on the floor when they've shown up that morning for their Zoom classroom. And then beyond that, we have a growing a population of Hispanic and Latino families in the city of Richmond, especially on South Side. We have some schools that are overwhelmingly a majority Hispanic or Latino population, but we don't have enough, I think, interpreters and translators to support our families, Hispanic and Latino families. So in those instances, we have sometimes students coming in to back to school night, translating for their families about what, are their expectations in the classroom. And that's just not fair. We need to make sure that we have adults who are able to be interpreters and translators for our families who speak primarily Spanish, so that their young people can be students and not doing the work that the RPS system should be doing to support their educational opportunities.
I totally agree with you, because I was a school just on the south side here, because I'm a proud 8th district resident. Built my house here in the city 4 years ago, and a school probably less than a mile from here, brand new school, already looking at, if we were in session now, that school would be overcrowded. And it seemed to be a lack of perhaps planning or looking at the demographics of this growing area. So again, going back to some of the problems that's contributing to that lack of, even with the virtual learning, we saw a report that came out last week that unfortunately we don't have a lot of the kids logging on, and the absenteeism is extremely high right now. So again, addressing that, how do we encourage, first of all, the parents to encourage the kids that, this is still not playtime, that education is important?
Well, I think we have to have those conversations with parents, but then we also need to face the reality that, even in my home, where just me and my partner are trying to log on to a Zoom at the same time, sometimes it's just technically a challenge for us to both be on the internet at the same time. And so, I think there are some times where we might need to provide additional support for parents, but sometimes literally the logistics just aren't there. And so for me as mayor, I would want to be sitting down with the school board and superintendent right now to figure out what we're going to do to address this issue. This is an urgent issue. This isn't something that can be put off. This isn't something that, can be delayed while we figure out, other issues. This is a right now issue. And I think, unfortunately, over the last administration, we've seen that the mayor isn't always working side by side in a collaborative way with the school board. Even in the rollout of our childcare services for essential workers, the mayor said he wanted to commit funding, and then turned around and said, "Oh, RPS, you're actually responsible for coming up with the arrangements and the MOUs to actually provide the childcare services. And that's no small detail, right?
Right.
That comes with liability and responsibilities for the school board to negotiate and come to terms with. So, for me, when I'm mayor, I'm not going to just say, well, I've got a good idea and I want to put the funding there, even though I ultimately don't have the responsibility to make the decisions. I want to sit down with the school board, with the superintendent to say, here's what I think our administration can do funding wise or resource wise, but y'all are the decision makers. So let's come to terms together. Let's collaborate to come up with the right plan together so that we can support each other. And maybe sometimes that means that the school board actually, or the school board president announces a plan and, our administration quietly works in the background. That's fine. To me, ultimately, as long as we're getting the job done, I don't care if Mayor Rodgers gets the credit. But we've got to make sure that young people and students and families aren't falling behind during this really challenging time.
So I see just in your statement that having a cohesive effort between and perhaps amending some risks between the city administration and the school board is vitally important because, again, in my mind, it's our kids that are at stake. It's our teachers and the support staff that suffer whenever the city administration and the school boards are not working cohesively. So again, will that be a priority in mending the broken fences and repairing the communications between those two entities?
Absolutely, it has to be. And I think that the education compact was an idea the mayor had to try to do that. But unfortunately, if it was just your idea and you didn't have buy-in from the other players like council and school board, it's all fine and well now that you want to blame them for not showing up. But did they have buy-in from the beginning? And if they didn't have buy-in from the beginning, then, it's a little cheap to say that they never showed up. So to me, it's got to be a priority from day one of our administration to sit down with council, to sit down with school board members. And look, a lot of these folks I have relationships with already, having been a leader in the Democratic Party, having been a volunteer with RPS. I have a lot of relationships with both the current incumbents, but also some of the candidates that are running for the first time. And I look forward to really, leveraging my experience as a policymaker and as an organizer to try to bring these folks together and use those relationships in a way that benefits all of us and helps us move the city together in a more inclusive manner.
We're going to go and now we're going to talk about affordable housing, because a lot of times when people hear affordable housing, first thing they think about is housing development. What is your vision and what does affordable housing look like up under the Rodgers administration?
Of course. So, affordable housing, a lot of people think about public housing when they think about affordable housing. That's a part of the larger network, but we also got to make sure that we have housing that's affordable for working class people, young professionals who want to live in the city, but to use the colloquialism, the rent is too damn high, right? So how do we make sure that we have affordable housing stock for professionals and working class people, teachers that want to live in the city of Richmond? To me, that means making sure that we are opening up more multifamily housing units within our city. Right now, really because of red line era policies and kind of racist decisions of the past, we still have a city that 2/3 of us is zoned for single family units, which means that we are not able to really get the inventory to meet the demand of housing in our community. So we've got to work with council to make sure that we're opening up more affordable housing for our communities. And beyond that, when it comes to public housing, we've got to make sure that community, that RHA is treated like the humans that they are, that they deserve dignity and respect. And I think, too many administrations, too many politicians have kind of looked at public housing as a less than or an issue that they can kind of get to later. Even this administration only recently, after 30 years of not having paved roads and some of our communities, said they were paving roads in public housing courts. We missed that opportunity, I think, earlier in Mayor Stoney's administration to really show that we value every neighborhood, whether it's public housing or Monument Avenue. So part of my plan, too, is making sure that as we redevelop RHA and redevelop our public housing units, that we're having one-to-one public brick and mortar buildings to replace those units. And that's important, not just saying that we're going to push those people out of that neighborhood, because housing vouchers just simply don't work for everybody. I was talking to some folks the other day about, the impact of vouchers. And they just kind of reminded me, look, imagine you lived in a neighborhood your whole life. You got used to being able to go to the grocery store and know that your kids were going to be safe because you know your neighbors. And then you're told, actually go live in the safer neighborhood that you don't know your neighbors, right? Like, it might be safer in other people's minds, but if you actually don't know your neighbors, that safety net has been disrupted. So while we're thinking about how we deconcentrate poverty and have more mixed income communities, we also have to be mindful of the safety net that we're potentially disrupting and figuring out how we can create truly inclusive communities that bring everyone along with us.
You made an excellent point, because I remember, again, the Blackwell transition, where it was a public housing. And of course, it's very nice over there. But the people that were actually living in Blackwell were, for lack of a better word, transferred to Chesterfield, some parts of Chesterfield, Tinsbury. And again, much to what you said, there was a disruption. And I think even when the people got out there in the Tinsbury, it's nice suburban area, they had hard times adjusting. And we saw that same mentality. It's like, they don't care about us, they're just throwing us out here. So, and preparing like the Gilpin courts and the Mosby courts to transition, will your administration have some type of education to help them with that transition and going from, as you said, from one neighborhood that's being shot up all the time, trying to get them ready for a better life?
Yeah, and I think this is where the Office of Community Wealth Building can really be an asset. And I think it's an office that is under-resourced for the city of Richmond, because they really should be working every day with RHA, and we should be able to continue to support their work to make sure that we are not only educating our neighbors who live in public housing, but getting them the support they need to get economic opportunities, access to better technical training so they can get into new career fields. And I think that has to be a priority. Finding another $1 million or even $2 million for the Office of Community Wealth Building goes a long way for that department, right? So when I'm thinking about ways that we can really make sure that folks are ready and prepared to transition into a different neighborhood or a different career field from our public housing community, I think, the Office of Community Wealth Building is doing a lot of good work in that regard, but that we could take it to the next level with a little more support for their work.
Before we move on to the next topic, while we're in affordable housing here, the 8th and 9th district, South Side, has been neglected. We see a lot of development going on down near Scott's Addition and over near the Sun Trust. And it seems like everywhere else there's boom, except on this area. We do fortunately have a couple of Port City, that's a new affordable complex here, and then 37 homes built by Mr. Jackie Colson that started at about 200,000, and all those are gone. But again, in the South Side, we have a large contingency of Hispanics, and we don't see that same boom going on here. So what would your administration do to change the dynamics of the 8th and 9th district and bring that economic boom and affordable housing to this district?
Yeah, so obviously, I'm hopeful that we can elect some leadership to City Council that will make that a priority. And beyond that, as mayor, it's got to be a priority for you to create those conditions that people want to develop in those neighborhoods. And that means having the infrastructure for sidewalk and transportation. That means having nice park space, where people want to live and develop there, and figuring out ways that we can, work with developers to get that investment there, has to be something that we think about. But, as we think about how we grow those parts of the city, something that I'm also aware of is the impact of gentrification, right? And, not necessarily deep South Side, talking about Broad Rock and, Bell, not there, but Blackwell, 8th District, we've seen the impact of gentrification and how some legacy Black families are starting to get priced out of that neighborhood. So we've got to, as we look at investing and getting more development and more, housing and density to the south side of Richmond, make sure that we're also supporting and elevating programs that will keep legacy Black families in their homes. Talking about tax abatement or tax relief for legacy homeowners, so that as their property values start going up because of the investment, hopefully, that we're able to bring to that area of town, that they're not priced out of the market and losing their home because they can't afford to keep up with the property tax payments.
I wish I want to get through this because we got some great topics here. But one of the things as a homeowner, right now our property taxes are about $1.20 per $100, but there has been talk that it can possibly, up under the current administration, may go up to as much as $1.40. How do we keep our city funded without putting the burden? It's just like Pharaoh told, the Hebrews said, "Look, you guys got to go out and make some more bricks, but we're not going to give you enough straw." So
Right.
How do we continue to, live in nice homes, and while the property taxes is going up, but yet there's no economic development? So it's kind of like a quagmire here.
Yep. I think residents are already paying their fair share when it comes to property taxes. We got meals tax, increased sales tax. Who I think can afford to pay a little bit more is VCU and some of our state government entities that currently are exempt from real estate property taxes. As a proud VCU Ram, I also know as VCU grows across the city and has new buildings across the city, they are actually, we're ceding land that could have been tax revenue generating land. So to me, I would be lobbying at the General Assembly to open up that tool for our tax toolkit to make sure that we are able to get some kind of revenues from, a large portion of the city that's currently, under VCU ownership, state government building ownership. So, that is the way that I would try to approach trying to open up some new revenues. And that will be a major source of new income, or truly a game changer for the city of Richmond if we could start getting even like marginal payments for the VCU and state government buildings currently take up in the city.
Real quickly, let's talk about some food deserts. And we know that in the city, certain parts of our city, there are food deserts, and people have to depend on going to the corner grocery store, like in the South Side here. And I hate to keep saying South Side 8th District, but it is, one of those areas that I see firsthand. We don't have a major big box store here, and all our revenue is going to the food line at the other end of Jeff Davis, as you cross into Chesterfield, or to the Walmart at Hopkins Road. How do we, again, under your administration, change that dynamic where people can get good vegetables and fresh fruits and all those things that they can't commonly find at the little corner grocery stores? And then we got money leaving the city again and going to Chesterfield.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we have food deserts deep south. Even in Manchester, you might have to get on a bus or two buses and still have to walk to get to the grocery store, from Manchester, or go on a 10-minute, 15-minute drive to get to the closest grocery store. And that's an area that is seeing a lot of development and, frankly, a lot of gentrification. So to me, it's got to be a joint effort with the mayor's administration and the local council representative to try to get the conditions correct to be able to demand a grocery store. And unfortunately, with the number of corner stores, dollar stores that we have in certain communities on the South Side and even in Manchester, we don't have the right formula, the right kind of density for a grocery store. So if we don't have as many Dollar Trees and Family Dollars that really aren't providing nutritious foods, but do have canned goods, but if we're able to kind of change that ratio to make sure, while we do have a lot of people living in the city, we don't actually have access to a grocery store, that would prove the demand that there's actually, the need for a grocery store. But beyond, a big box grocery store, I'm also been really impressed by the work that Duran and Art and some others have led on urban gardening and making sure that we're, having more spaces in our community where where neighbors can come together and grow their own fruits and vegetables in their neighborhoods. And I think, the city can play an active role in supporting the leadership of community members, especially Black and Brown neighbors in the South Side that have tried to address this issue because of the clear need. In spite of the fact that, we've not had the leadership to get us a grocery store, they've taken matters into their own hand and said, well, young people and students and families need to have access to vegetables, so we're going to kind of make our own. And I think the city can continue to support that work, and that would be something that my administration would certainly be about.
All right, this is a biggie. Police reform, of course, we've had, and I understand that you've been on some of the front lines of what's been going on with the protest and some other things, just justice and period. So, what does police reform look like for your administration? And then we're going to talk about relationships between the current chief of police and the Commonwealth's attorney.
Sure. So what I'm about when it comes to police reform is making sure that we are sending law enforcement officers into situations that they're trained and prepared to handle well, right? And I think for too long, we've called 911 for too many things. We've called on police officers to check on somebody that's passed out under a bridge. We've called on police officers to see if this cookout is permitted. We've called on police officers because I suspect my neighbor might be up to something. And sometimes that law enforcement response has led to a situation that is unnecessary or escalated tensions within the community unnecessarily. And quite frankly, in my conversations with a lot of law enforcement officers, they don't want to have to respond to an issue of mental health crisis. They don't want to check on, a cookout or, domestic violence dispute, because they know that's not actually what they went to Academy for. They went to Academy to figure out how to solve crimes, to keep the public safe. And that's what they're about. That's why they came to be a Richmond Police Department officer. So the focus of my administration will be on reducing the scale and scope of policing so that we're keeping both law enforcement officers safe and our community members. So that when there is a crisis or a crime that police should be responding to, they're available to respond to it and not stuck at a protest that honestly didn't need their support or their presence in the first place. I think it's also really important to be really clear that we have had a police department that's operated without transparency and without accountability. And we can't continue to do that if we also say we want the public's trust in helping us solve crimes. So that's why I've been very supportive of an independent civilian review board that has subpoena power, that can provide that direct oversight of the police department, where the public can feel like they actually have a say, and not only looking into what maybe an officer has done wrong, but proactively setting forward policies that help keep us safe so that we don't have to look at it retroactively. So those are some of the policies that I've been about. I've been really frustrated that, after 2 years of Marcus David Peters' family and advocates coming together to say that these are important issues, that we still have, a mayor and city council member that are kind of, hemming and hawing about whether or not these are good solutions. And so for me, that's a key reason why I got into the race, because after we saw the national movement and we still had leadership dragging their feet and saying, I'm not sure if we can do this in the city of Richmond, I was quite frankly fed up. We need to have, I think, a leader that's going to be working proactively with the community to solve these issues, and not saying, well, I'm not sure, or it's not politically convenient.
What does that communication piece between Rodgers administration and the chief of police and the Commonwealth's attorney look like?
So, I think number one, I was very concerned by the process for the selection for the last chief of police. I think, our first chief, Will Smith, that was hired a while ago, there was a very transparent and robust community engagement process where people had a say. There were town halls. People had an opportunity to voice their ideas and vision for the next chief of police. And, unfortunately, we didn't have that kind of engagement in the selection for Mr. Gerald Smith. And I think that robbed the community of the important input that we needed, especially in this time of crisis where people have made very clear whether or not they all agree on particular ideas for reform. There are a lot of our community members who agree that we need change. And instead, the mayor's administration kind of rushed through a search, and we had somebody with no public input or transparency. So for me, we've got to have that transparency and accountability to the public. Beyond that, the communication between my administration, the chief of police, and the Commonwealth's attorney, as somebody who's had to lobby and organize to get bills passed, I've had to leverage that kind of skill set to communicate with people where maybe I'm not on the same page with them, but I still need to be clear where I stand, what my values are, what my priorities are, and vice versa, right? And even this summer, after some of the early protests where people were getting tear gas and getting arrested, I sat down with Ms. McKeechin. I was very grateful that she was willing to sit down with us to talk about some of the concerns about how the curfew was enforced, and why I was asking her to drop some of these charges. I was grateful that she met with me, and I have that relationship with her from my leadership in the Democratic Party, and I would carry that with me to the office of mayor.
Oh, transportation. One of the things, and when I looked at this and I was looking at your platform, I said, you know what? I want her to explain to the citizens, what does a new transportation system look like for the city of Richmond, and where does that funding come from to implement a program like that?
Yeah, so right now we have the same people responsible for leaf collection and our sewage as are the people who are responsible for bike lanes and transportation throughout the city. And I just think those are different skill sets that require their own distinct resources, especially when we know right now that too many of our neighborhoods don't have access to sidewalks, don't have access to safe crosswalks in their neighborhood. We need to have, I think, direct oversight through a Department of Transportation, which a lot of modern and growing cities have even within Virginia. So, like any other department or any other initiative, we would need to look at the budget and figure out how we can prioritize funding, how we can move things around to support a new department. But, I think it's mission critical to be able to have a direct, leader over the state of our streets and responsible for making sure that we have safe streets that are accessible, not just for cars, but also for pedestrians and bikers and other motorists. And I also think that it will help us open up more funding from the state and federal level if we have someone that is, separate from the Department of Public Works, that is running an agency or a department for the city focused on mobility.
Now, Alexis, some people are going to say that your experience, the lack of experience in a public office could be one of those things that would be perhaps an albatross, especially when you're dealing with a budget of around about $30 billion. You have a lot of major operations up under of the city that the mayor oversees. So what do you say to those that say, I like her, I like what she's saying, she seems like she had a good platform, but I don't know about the experience, because this is a city in crisis, this is a city in transition. Is she strong enough? Is she ready to step into such a major role?
I love this question. We are a city in crisis. We are a city that's hurting. And the folks who have been in charge of us as we've come into this time of crisis is Mayor Stoney, it's Councilwoman Gray. We have had an eviction crisis for a long time. We've had an issue with our police department for a long time. We've had issues with mobility for a long time. And the folks at the helm have been, Mayor Stoney and Councilwoman Gray. So for me, when people are talking about experience and whether I'm qualified to lead this city, I'm asking people, look at experience and record and what these candidates have been fighting for and what they prioritize, whether it was as an elected official or in other roles. And for me, as a policy leader, as an organizer, I've built teams and led organizations to fight for working people, whether that was expanding access to healthcare or fighting for workers' rights or, expanding access to our democracy. And when I think about the leadership that's necessary to lead our city through not only this crisis, but into the future. We need somebody that's going to be able to cast that vision for what that city looks like, but also someone who can manage the team to get it done and who will surround themselves by people who are able to manage these operations on a daily basis. And, point to the current administration, we've had an interim CAO for more than a year at this point. And I don't understand why that hasn't been a priority. We shuffled through and rushed through a process for a national search, so to speak, for a police chief. And yet it's been more than a year and we still don't have a permanent CAO. And as much as I know, I look forward to being the mayor of the city. The CAO is a really important position. That person is seen as the daily manager of the operations of City Hall. And I am pretty certain that with that uncertainty of who's going to be the permanent selection, that's having an impact on every city worker's daily work. So, to me, yes, you need to make sure that your mayor is experienced and has a record, but also that they're going to bring together the team that's going to focus on executing that vision with excellence. And that's that's something that I have experience doing throughout my career.
I'm going to put up a graphics here, and as we get ready to close out here. First of all, everybody, there's 5 candidates, and we've had 3 of the 5 on here tonight. Tracy McLean, Justin Griffin, and Alexsis Rodgers, and of course, your mayor, and then Kim Gray. So now polls are saying these are the front runners. And my question to you, Alexis, is how do we go from here to here?
Yep.
And what's your plan again to get there?
So I often remind people we started our campaign in June out of an outcry for a change from, what we saw was a lack of leadership from the city. And within weeks, we had 2,500 signatures to qualify for the ballot. Overnight, we had $35,000 for our campaign. And it's only grown from there. The fact that I'm a front runner 4 months into my campaign against somebody who's been in office for 12 years, against someone who's been mayor for 4 years, shows that people are ready and eager for change, right? I've never been elected. So the fact that already people are excited to vote for me and support me, and that there are still so many people that are undecided, I think bodes well for our success come November 3rd. So between now and the next, 12 days, we're out there in the community talking about my positive vision, talking about, the folks who have come to support my campaign, whether that's progressive organizations who have roots in our community, like New Virginia Majority, some of our elected officials from the area, like Delegate Aird and Delegate Don Adams. We are just, out there listening to concerns every single day and telling folks what we're going to do differently to bring about that change for the city.
Well, certainly, again, you can tell that you're very astute, because when I said significant endorsements, that says a lot to have Don Adams and LaSharia Ayers. And just a footnote here, probably about 6 years ago when Delegate Ayers was running, we didn't have this broadcasting. We did it on the radio. And of course, she was our first victory for us in terms of being in the political arena and having interviews. And then she came back with a second victory. So, those are huge endorsements. And then with the New Virginia Majority and the 2020 endorsed candidate, and just quite a few. As we wrap up here tonight, what would you like to say to this group of 6,400 plus the people that will be watching this after we end this broadcast? What does Alexis say to the people that say, hey, I'm your person, I'm the one, forget anything else you heard. If you want the best, go with Alexis?
Yeah. I mean, I love this city. I grew up in Hanover County. I chose to stay in Richmond after going to school at VCU. I have done as much as I can throughout my career, both professionally and then also just personally, to support our community and to pass policies that are going to uplift working families. Sometimes people are like, do you work for the city of Richmond? Because you're always boosting the Richmond restaurant. You're always talking about this new, exhibit at the museum. And I just love this city. And to whatever I can do to help see Richmond go to the next level, I'm going to do it. And so this year, when I felt like there wasn't the leadership that we deserve to be accountable to the people in the race, that's why I jumped in. Not because I'm anyone special, but because I know my vision, my leadership for the city is one that's always going to be rooted in putting people first, not someone that's going to back down when it gets hard, not someone that's going to cave to special interests and corporate entities. I've always been about this life, fighting for working people, whether it was for college affordability or for healthcare access or workers' rights. And I'm not going to lose sight of that when I'm mayor. So I really do hope that I can earn folks' support. And I obviously always invite you to visit alexisrodgers.com to learn more.
Well, Alexis, I certainly appreciate you taking time out. Your schedule. I was hoping I kept watching the internet here because, at times this time of evening, we get a lot of buffering going on. But hey, we made it through. And again, thank you and thank your team so much for making this happen for us. And want to wish you the best of luck in the race. And, stay in touch with us.
I will. I appreciate you so much. And I'll have to tell Delegate Air that I was on here tonight.
Absolutely. I invited her to watch. So hopefully, if she didn't get a chance to watch it tonight, she'll be able to go back out on the YouTube channel and watch it. And again, thank you for being so gracious. And even under fire, you were able to, take the heat. And that's what's important to me with anybody that's going to be leading our city is that you got to be tough and you got to be able to give the people the answers. And I think tonight that the people are going to be able to go and make an informed decision. And that's what this program is all about, is giving people the opportunity to meet all the candidates, not in a debate or anything, but to that up close and personal view. So thank you so much for this.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Well, we have a great evening and be safe and tell everybody we said hello.
I will. Take care now.
Right. You too. All right, everybody. Again, that was mayoral candidate Alexsis Rodgers here on Cruz Inc. Radio 102.8 live remote. We're going to be leaving there, but if you missed any of this broadcast, I want you to know that you'll be able to see it on our 15 Facebook pages. You will also be able to go to our YouTube channel, which is Cruz Inc. Radio 102.8 TV. Thank you so much for being here. As I always say, whatever comes from the heart reaches the heart. Let somebody know how much you love them. Remember, this pandemic is serious. We lost over 200,000 people in this country, and our numbers are spiking. Wear your mask, keep your social distancing, and wash your hands. Thank you, everybody. Have a blessed night. This is your boy Cruz, and I'm out of here.